Going into January and February, that there are planning conferences going on all across the country, and we're talking about our plans for 2016 and how we're going to continue to work on growing Cub Scouting and exploring. And as Will Rogers said, the only thing wrong with the Boy Scouts is there's not enough of them. So our goal is to solve that problem right here today. And so with us, we're going to do a couple of things today. One, we're going to talk to Mark Ryan, who's the Assistant Scout Executive out of the Pathway to Adventure Council, which is the greater Chicago area. We've also got Ron Timmons here with us, who's going to talk about growth. And as always, we have Scott Olson with our data dump, as we call it, a real look at national marketing research and some insights that we can pull and use. We wanted to have Mark on the phone this morning because the Pathway to Adventure Council is one of those councils that has used Build an Adventure, and it's one thing for Ron and I to get on a webinar and talk about Build an Adventure and assets and resources and playbooks and that kind of thing, but Mark Ryan's council is one of those that they've actually used it, they put it into place, and they've had great success. And so we invited him to come with us this morning and kind of tell us a little bit about what they've done, what their successes have been, challenges, opportunities, and if other councils want to get involved with this and start using Build an Adventure.
Yeah, for us, Michael, it was for folks that are familiar with Pathway to Adventure Council on January 1st, 4 local councils in the Chicago area came together to form the new Pathway to Adventure Council. So the good news, I guess, is we wouldn't have had much more time even if we wanted it. The great opportunity moving forward is now that we've been through the Build an Adventure process for a year, or for the first time, and now we have a full year to plan, we're super excited. But that is one of the big things is we got engaged just about 6 months ago when this was all starting to roll out, and we just couldn't help but think throughout the process, boy, if we had 4 or 5 more months, how much more we could have done. But we're so proud of the fact that all of our volunteers rallied behind the campaign, and it was a change for folks because, again, 4 separate cultures and 4 legacy councils coming together, and something just as simple as the fact that we were trying to go to one day across 2 different states and many different school districts. But in the end, I think our folks did a great job of understanding the things that could unite us as opposed to the things that might divide us based on what the best day is or what the best method was. The idea that we would build and promise an adventure resonated well across the council, and certainly our results have showed here in the first year that it resonated extremely well with our parents and families and within our council territory.
So, Mark, you and I talked before our call this morning, and you just used a word that you used this morning, too, which I think is interesting. And I'm thinking about the politics of bringing together a number of different councils and doing it rather quickly and trying to get a recruiting effort off the ground. But you used the word rally. And it sounds like that you really use this kind of as a rallying point to start bringing people together.
Yeah, it was important, as I said in the build-up there, it was important for us to find something that could focus our entire group, this new big council, on the future as opposed to where we came from, more importantly, where we're heading in the future. And so what was great was not only did the campaign really work, but it really has become the glue that brought us all together. It gave us all a single purpose at an important time, right after coming off of our summer camp season. Obviously, a lot of build-up before that, but to be able to reach out to folks, and I'd share that as one of what I think was our great successes, but to be able to reach out to folks at every level of our organization, whether it was our council president who was involved, all the way up to our den leaders and new parents, opportunities for them to create opportunities for each of them to get involved in what we called making a meaningful contribution, really was what held the day. I think, and I shared this with you earlier, Michael, sometimes the membership plan or the membership campaign can seem like it's a much higher level plan that was created by a few, and I don't know that that's always the case, but I know that the design of our Build an Adventure, our Blast into Scouting campaign was, as you talked about it before, we tried to mimic what we viewed as a political campaign. So if you're involved in a political campaign, getting behind a candidate, there are just hundreds of ways for you to get involved, whether it's post a yard sign, canvass, make a phone call. Folks feel very attached to the candidate and often, feel when they do win that they had a great hand in that. So the design for us was, how can we create the same type of scenario? How can we create lots of small opportunities and really flood the market with that and ask people to engage in 1, 2, 5, 6, whatever it was, but really not only meaningfully contribute, but also be a part of the success of the campaign.
So
and that probably was the single largest success that we really enjoyed as part of the campaign.
So that's really interesting, because I think we've all seen situations where there's a membership plan, right? But it may live within a silo within the organization, right? Or it just seems to belong to the field staff alone, or may belong to the membership committee, and it never really seems to get outside that group, right? The only thing, I mean, we hear about it going on, but it really falls on that den leader or that cub master or the DE who's running around to all these different schools. But it sounds like what you're describing is that there was a menu of things that people could do to get involved at every level. It wasn't just isolated to that one area.
Yeah, 100%. We called it the Everyone Can Get Involved campaign, and to your point, Michael, it's critical if we're going to really position this movement to where we all want to see it go in the future. It has to be a partnership of volunteer and commission staff working together. And so I'll give you a couple of examples of what I think really helped us out a lot. We're blessed to have, again, really worked with the surrounding councils here, all of us taking different parts, but in doing that, we were able to leverage our marketing volunteers, our creative volunteers, and whatnot. And here are a couple things that were examples of something that, again, if you're a brand new parent, all the way up to use the example of our council president, who was able to take some of these things and within the confines of his daily responsibilities, simply do a few of these things. So, one, social media. We created a cover photo that you could literally, we sent it out and we had it on our website, and it was a blast into scouting cover photo that you could post on your Facebook page. And we did it in a campaign fashion. We asked people to post it on August 17th and leave it up until September 17th. So for 1 month, and we promoted that. And so we had, a couple thousand people put this cover photo up announcing the blast, and we got, obviously countless amounts of folks that were informed that way. Similar, the National Service Center has created some great PSAs, and one of the ones that fit right into our blast in the scouting campaign was the Rocket Man PSA. We were able to work with some folks from the National Service Center to be able to re-tag the end of it to put our specific website where we wanted to draw traffic, or drive traffic, I should say. And then on September 1st, we released that in full force, and we said, okay, now post this on your site. And so it was those kinds of things, and for us, we had a massive school process we were trying to get through to get into all of our public schools, so we asked people to take a stand, man a school on September 17th. They could get involved in the rocket blast on the back end, created a press release template, and asked folks to go to their local newspapers, their online media outlets, and get it posted. And so what I'm trying to draw is the picture that none of these things really caused anybody any great deal of stress to be able to do it, and they could pick and choose, and folks just did most of them because they were all very straightforward, very easy to do, and I think it really raised awareness. For us, it was more, obviously, than a membership campaign. It was a major branding and marketing campaign as well, and the success of that would not have been possible without all of the parents being able to get involved. So we're quite proud of that part.
Mark, this is Ron. That's fantastic details about the campaign. You guys did one very unique thing that was really kind of cool, and how you wrapped up your campaign and had that special evening. Can you tell everybody a little bit about that and what you guys did to generate the buzz and kind of bring the campaign to a close?
Sure, and I guess to your point, Ron, is that the same way we tried to, based on the whole political campaign, create the end result to be the same. And so we had a live simulcast, or we had a live cast, I guess, and we were able to broadcast live from McDonald's University, McDonald's headquarters, right here in our council. And we had about 1,000 people that signed on that night. And so the schools were open from 7 to 8. From there, once families joined, those applications all then filtered into several different district locations that eventually filtered into each of our 4 council service centers, and then eventually we're all counted. And throughout, from 9 o'clock on till about midnight, actually, we broadcast live, and people were able to call in, and we'd have live updates. And so it was kind of a cross between a political campaign and a telethon. We had a great deal of fun. We were thrilled that our new Chief Scout Executive called in and got to share his thoughts. And it really, I think, not only got folks excited, but for the key volunteer leaders and the staff that had worked so hard on this for the 6 months. It really validated the whole process and brought it together nicely in the end. And it was just a fun way to really end the day, which wasn't the end of the campaign for us, because 2 weeks later we got to deliver on the promise, which I'd love to share with you. But for that night, being able to have that fun kind of live, talk show where we got to interview guests and have a good time really did culminate quite nicely and a lot of work.
That's amazing. Hey, and I do want to talk about Launch Day or Blast Day, but before we get there, you mentioned something this morning that was, I'm sure a lot of councils out there are doing it, but boy, the way you describe it's amazing. I know in previous experiences we've heard about, a pack goes and says, hey, here's the school I draw from. That's where we do our joint scouting night. But it sounds like you took a different approach. You weren't going back to the same well that you've gone back to over and over again, but you're really looking to, I guess, increase the number of units or broaden the number of people that you reach with this message with really going through schools. Tell me a little bit about that. How did that work?
Yeah, what was neat about switching, or really adopting this build an adventure, and in our case, Blast into Scouting, it was an opportunity for us to really start from scratch and to ask all of the questions. What is that? What are we really trying to do here? Are we trying to increase membership? What's the ultimate goal? And for us, it was, as I mentioned before, not only branding, but the idea was ultimately our goal is to reach out to every or as many families as possible. And so what we found was, as we looked at the way many of our key volunteers and many of our staff have been used to rolling out membership campaigns, if you will, we would all kind of know it from, generally somewhere in the council, be it some partnership of volunteer and staff, they come up with the concept, whether it's this Build an Adventure or some of the other exciting things that we've all done in the past, race into scouting, or, any of that stuff, whatever it's been. Then it kind of gets rolled out into the districts, and we look for some additional buy-in and excitement. And then eventually it gets to that next point where we then go to the units, and when I can think back to being a district executive or unit serving executive, where I'd sit down with my chart, and I would have every unit, and then I would list the schools that they recruit from. And so early on, we had this moment where we talked about what we called changing the equation, and the results of doing so were really quite significant. So we just simply, the unit is so critical to the equation, but what we did was we just simply changed the place of the school and the unit in the equation. So still a lot of the same similarities in the beginning. Was a council kind of driven process, moved into the communities for us and into our districts. And then the very next piece for us was rallying all of those volunteers and all of our staff around the fact that we have 1,147 elementary schools within our council territory. And the goal, the hill, so to speak, at the time was we need to get into all 1,147 of those schools so that we can have a very clear call to action on every poster, yard sign, flyer, social, media outlet, whatever it is. We need to be able to say, go to your local elementary school between 7 and 8. Now, we realized that although the hill was all 1,147, we certainly realized that it was probably highly unlikely that we would get into all of them. But we wound up getting into 53% of the schools, over 600, which may not seem significant, but when you look at the history in these four councils and now this one council, it certainly was a huge growth in terms of rebuilding relationships in schools. But here's the punchline. This is really what was exciting for us. Because we changed that equation, because we went to the school first, and then once we got the school online, we then connected the units, making sure units were covering those schools. We wound up not only organizing several new units, but also having lots of families and kids come out, places that we haven't been in years. So not only was the conversation different with the schools to say, hey, we're doing this big thing, it's a major marketing push, and we really need to be in your school. But as a result of it, the fact that we now have scouting in communities that in some cases it's been a year, 2 years, and in other cases reports of over a decade since scouting has been there,
wow,
where 20 or 30 kids showed up and a new unit was organized within the next week or two. And that to us, just the opportunity to change the way we approach it and do it the way we thought it should be done, it was just so significant. We're excited about that for next year. I think a big change for us next year will be, instead of it being a result of the campaign, it will be a more strategic direction moving forward. We'll look for these gaps, so to speak, and we'll have prepared in advance. We'll have already undergone some of the organizational steps of creating a new unit, so by the time the actual registration night comes, that we can have some of those key fundamental things in place, like the chartered organization, perhaps some trained adults, and that's really going to be a big focus for us in 2016.
So, Mark, from your position now, having been through this, and of course you had obviously a short runway, but have had some great success with this, sounds like. If you were talking to a council today who hasn't done Build an Adventure yet, or is just thinking about how to orchestrate this for 2016, what are a couple of things you'd recommend? How would you get started?
Well, the first, as we already kind of joked about a little bit, is get started now. Had we had the few extra months, we would have certainly been better off and more organized. There's a whole process that, if you do it right, that we want to do a lot better at in 2016, which is really spend the time in the spring to go through what we learned from Minnesota and our surrounding councils now are trying to execute a membership readiness process. Going through and making sure that the key fundamentals are there. There's a big push for us is to kind of reorganize our council around building healthy and strong units. We really identified that as the main purpose of why we exist as a council, and we've defined some of the things that we know a healthy and strong unit is or has, so to speak. A budget, a calendar. I can't tell you how much I say we learned, but we had already heard that from Minnesota, but we knew how important it was to be able to give parents with current Cub Scout age kids a full year's worth of a calendar. I mean, that is critical to the folks joining Scouting right now, that they can see exactly what's expected. And so anyway, what I would say, Michael, is that there is a lot of pre-work that you can do to help strengthen the campaign, to help organize the campaign, and a lot of it does come down to engaging the units early and going through this process of making sure that they have the right key pieces in place in terms of leaders, in terms of calendars and budgets and all those things, so that by the time we welcome these new families in September or August in your council, that unit is either very much solidified or on the way to being a solidified and strong and healthy unit that will be able to retain those kids once we bring them in the front door.
Fantastic. Well, that's good. So, and just to wrap things up, this was you used rockets this year. It sounds like you're on the path using rockets probably 3 years in a row. Is that what you're thinking? It's probably a 3-year burn on this?
Yeah, we went all in the beginning, and we told our folks that, we didn't tell our folks. We shared with our folks when we initially put the concept out there that we wanted to agree on and choose something that we can really sink our teeth into for 3 years, so that it wasn't a one and done, and B, what was exciting and what we had hoped would happen was the very next day we could start building on the success as opposed to feeling like we have to start over. And so we're set for 2016 in terms of the theme. The volunteer leadership is meeting and reviewing surveys and really asking the tough questions about the things that didn't work. And really trying to figure out, how many blast days do we need? Is this date too late? All of those things, we're hoping to have all of that solidified here within the next 30 days, so that by the end of January we can, have our kickoff on the calendar and get folks excited and really engage our units early.
That's good.
Where we are for 2016.
Let me give you the final word on something you mentioned earlier. You were in our earlier conversation before the phone call. You mentioned at the Joint Scouting Night, really delivering on that promise within 2 weeks, and really delivering on the brand promise.
Yeah.
Talk about that just a little bit, if you would. I know sometimes we go to Joint Scouting Nights and we say, who wants to start fires and carry knives and go camping, and the kids never have that kind of experience, right? But you had a good observation on what we're really doing with this.
Yeah, well, that's what really, in essence, that's the difference between recruitment campaigns and Build an Adventure, and that's why I love that you guys have really created this, and we're so supportive of it, because that's what it's all about. It's about delivering that promise, and as I've said to you, and we joke at our team meetings, nobody has ever gone into a school and said to a bunch of first or second graders, join the Cub Scouts because you're going to have the best meetings in the church basement ever. Everybody goes in and gets them all fired up, and then sometimes, by the time you join in September to when you really have your first outing or adventure, sometimes there's a disconnect there or a lag. And so being able to have on the calendar as part of this the blast day 2 weeks. Our date was September 17th. Our launch parties, 8 of them across our council, the morning of October 3rd, really was exciting. There was another whole team that was behind that, but delivering on that promise and seeing those kids, we took some great videos, had some great shots of kids firing off their rockets that they had gotten 2 weeks earlier and had the chance to build, and that really made it special for us. And we're going to put a lot more energy as well into the actual launch parties and making them even more fun. We tried to add a lot of other kind of Cub Scout fun, archery, all that stuff, and so it was like almost a half-a-day mini day camp. But the response from that really was what made everything come together for us, and really was probably up there in terms of the successful pieces of the campaign for us.
That's great. Everybody, Mark Ryan, Pathway to Adventure Council. Mark, thanks for joining us. I know you've got to get to a meeting. Have a great day.
Mark, thank you so much.
My pleasure again, and happy holidays to everybody. We're excited to learn from all of the councils across the country as well, and I think what we do know for sure is that this is the direction that we're moving as a movement, and not only promising but delivering on the adventure is what's going to bring new families in. So can't wait to be a part of the next phase of it, and can't wait to see the stuff that you guys are putting together for 2016. So thanks, Michael, for what you guys do as well.
Mark, thanks a lot. Have a good day.
Have a great day.
You too.
So, Ron, so we have really good feedback from Mark about the program, what's working, obviously looking at some things that they obviously worked really well, maybe some things they won't do next year as they kind of fine-tune the plan. But is this consistent with what we're hearing? And
absolutely. So from the field, first, we did a test group of councils. We went to each of the areas and asked our area directors to connect us with a council that could have used some extra support and hand-holding with putting together the Building a Venture campaign. And those councils jumped in. They were fully excited. We worked with them starting in June, and we wish we had more time, but launching at the National Annual Meeting gave us a quick window to work in. But they were all tremendous and very receptive. Staff and volunteer teams together. We gave the outline of the plans, a little bit of direction, and had some regularly scheduled phone call conversations in which we brought together those test groups. So we followed up with those councils, and we basically worked with them on monthly phone calls. And what was really great was the calls were not about National Service Center just talking and telling the councils what to do. The calls wound up being these test councils working together and sharing ideas, sharing their stumbles, and councils helping each other solve those problems. And that really was a great dynamic. And what ultimately came out of it as we went into the fall and into the joining nights was we were just feeling and hearing this just very palpable buzz about the Building a Venture campaign and the recruitment process. And quite frankly, we were getting some direct feedback phone calls from Scout executives and field directors that were telling us that, for the first time in a long time, they were having just an energy around recruitment and joining nights. And in many cases, we even heard stories of brand new unit serving executives, or not so brand new, maybe that have been on the job 24 months or so, and this was their first experience that they were having with a positive recruitment.
Wow!
So great feedback from the councils, and I think we also learned a lot going forward into 2016 and what we could do to make some tweaks and enhancements to support councils.
And so far, it looks like the numbers for Cub Scouting we've had 2 months of growth. Sounds like
fantastic news. I mean, everybody out there is knows their exact personal number, but across the nation, we've had 2 months of positive growth for Cub Scouts. The first time that's happened in more than 10 years.
Wow.
Super exciting. You could definitely tell that the energy is back. The BSA is back, and we're back, and we're going to continue to grow and move fast.
That's exciting. So what are we looking at for a Building Adventure 2016?
Yeah, so we're going to continue with adding some enhancements to the membership and marketing hub, where really the playbooks, if you will, and the themes to support the concept of Building a Venture live. We're going to have some additional support materials related to marketing, whether it's social media components or PSAs, and we're also going to add one additional playbook, and we're still working on the details of that, so we won't let the cat out of the bag just yet. But it's not to have councils that are like Pathway to Adventure that are in the Blast into Scouting program change it up. We want them to stick with that plan if that's worked for them.
Right.
But this just gives another opportunity and another playbook on the shelf for a council to grab and say, okay, well, that'll work for us. So
right.
Let's do that.
Fishing may not work here, but rockets will work, for instance. And where rockets won't work, maybe STEM works, or maybe it's a different, right. So you have some...
Absolutely. And what's great is, I just want to share, in fact, yesterday we did a taping of each of the regional directors along with Mike Servar, Chief Scout Executive. And this is a video clip that we're going to share with councils and ask councils to share this video at their staff planning conference coming up in January and early February, or at least a staff meeting. And it's a short video that is a message, although taped in December. We'll talk a little bit about how 2015 was going and highlight a few councils or areas in the successes that we knew as of yesterday.
Right.
And then talk about going forward in 2016 and what we need to do. You're going to hear a little bit about the 2016 growth plan for the National VSA. And then really going to get an off-the-cuff personal message from the Chief Scout Executive who's really going to tell us where we need to jump to and go forward and grow in 2016.
Very good. So it may be too early to talk about it, but there is a growth conference set for April.
Right. So before I jump into that, I'll just give you the highlights. There are really just four simple ones about the 2016 growth plan. The first is talking really about the core, and that is build an adventure and recruiting more Cub Scouts. This is the one that everybody's most familiar with, and this is exactly what we just talked about with what happened in Pathway to Adventure Council and the enhancements and additional components that we're going to have for 2016. So first component of the growth plan, build an adventure, grow more Cub Scouts. I would think a lot of people would agree that if we had 1 million more Cub Scouts within the Boy Scouts, we could probably solve many of our council challenges. The second is something that I know by now everybody's heard about, and that is Exploring Explosion. And that's getting back to offering one of our biggest markets and one of the markets that's underserved, and that is our teenage young adult population. And what a great opportunity with working with the local communities and businesses and bringing together board members and other volunteers that can offer opportunities to grow a program great like Exploring and offer our teenage youth an opportunity to learn a little bit about a career. Maybe they think that they are really in to being a nurse or a doctor, and finally when they get a little taste of it, they realize that they're more on the administrative side of healthcare services.
Pass out at the sight of blood and decide this is not for me, right?
Exactly.
It's cheaper to find out now than after spending 2 years of medical school, right?
And student loans, probably. So that's the second component of the growth plan is Exploring Explosion. The third is really a simple one, but it really is the base of how we grow, and that is new units and retaining units. We all know that we can recruit kids, but if we have no place to put them, or better yet, if we don't have quality, ready to move forward units that can accept new families, new youth, and provide them with a quality experience, we're not going to be able to continue to grow. So it's about new units and looking for new charter partners and looking for enhancing our relationships with our current charter partners, which is really the foundation of our success. And then finally, this is a really fun topic, and it's one that we're still working the details out on, but it's simply called pilots. And we want to talk to councils about perhaps some programs that they may be already running or have a concept to run that is a great way locally to reach an underserved market that delivers a lot of what we do best, and that is character and leadership development. And we want to work with councils to come up with those concepts for these pilots and get some local approved tests on those, and then see which ones are the real pilots that perhaps we can ramp up and offer to councils to run across the nation.
Right. So the one that a lot of people have heard of course, is the Lions Club, the Lions Pilot, not Lions Club, Lions Pilot.
Exactly. The Lions Pilot is a great great one, and that's talking about reaching our kindergarten-aged youth. And we have a bunch of councils that are out there that are both informally and some that are formally doing the pilot. But that's a great example. And while we're still waiting for some of the real feedback and how to move that forward properly, it's already shown some really positive signs. But there may be other markets or other concepts where you have a unique opportunity to serve some youth, but perhaps it doesn't necessarily fit into the for the lack of a better term, the traditional
buckets,
of a Boy Scout troop or a Cub Scout pack, but it absolutely would meet those basic priorities of what we are best at, and that is character and leadership development. So we're excited about that. Those are the 4 key components of the growth plan, and in order to get that message out, like I shared, we have a message that's going to go out to councils to let them hear from their regional directors and from the chief about what 2016 is going to be all about. This is our time, and we're ready to grow. We need everybody to not look at the past, and like Pathway to Adventure Council and Mark's example is look where we'll go and look how far we can grow.
Right.
An additional thing we're going to look at a unique concept, and that is we're looking towards the middle to third week of April to the first time run a national growth plan conference, and this would be an evening conference that would be web-based, and we would have similar to an election night and a telethon concept, and this would be sharing some of the success stories around each of the regions. We would move from time zone to time zone, and by the end of the evening, through asking each of the areas to report in on goals for each of those 4 categories, an expectation of what they think is going to be success for them in the council, and then perhaps an aspirational goal, where if they could absolutely knock it out of the park, what would that look like? And then at the end of the evening, we'll have a picture of where the BSA has the potential to grow in this recruiting season. So recruiting starts now. We need councils to be working on their plans, and we need them to hit the ground running in January. Everybody knows that, but there's a lot of components to that. We want to be able to support them in every way we can.
So if somebody wants to plug in to Build an Adventure and do what Pathway to Adventure has done, for instance, or maybe become one of the test councils, pilot councils, what's the process for that?
Right. So we're looking to do another batch of targeted councils, and we want you to work with your area director and sharing your story on why you should be the council within your particular area. And so we'll wind up with about 28 or so of those targeted groups. But the Build an Adventure campaigns and all the playbooks are open up to every council.
Right.
And certainly, don't hesitate to reach out to a neighboring council that you may have known that had an experience with Build an Adventure. A great one that was on the phone there in the Chicago area with Mark and his team. They'd love to chat about it, but there are many others around the country. But at the very least, I think a council needs to make sure that their staff and their core recruitment team of volunteers are getting together and talking about where they want to go for 2016. And if you've never done Build an Adventure, this is going to be your first time out of the gate. At the very least, get on the on Scouting Wire and click on the Marketing and Membership Hub. Look for the very basic hot points and the playbooks. It's going to give you some of the easy concepts. And then reach out to us here at the National Service Center. Okay. We want to be able to support you and work with your councils. We're going out to a lot of planning conferences within some of the councils that are doing especially group council conferences. And so we're absolutely happy to be a part of that and work hand to hand with the staff and volunteers to make it happen.
Perfect. So again, to find the Membership Marketing Hub where all the playbooks live, you go to scoutingwire.org. Hopefully you've all subscribed to the Scouting Wire and it shows up in your email box every Friday. But if not, go to www.scoutingwire.org. And at the top of that, you'll see a link to the Membership Marketing Hub. You'll also find links to the Brand Center, and that's where all the posters, flyers, yard signs, stickers, commercials, PSAs, everything that we have related to Build an Adventure is posted up on that site, as well as a lot of other stuff, too. Mark mentioned the Rocket Man PSA, which is a great commercial. You can actually find it on the Brand Center up there, and take a look at it.
So fun to watch.
It's really great. Makes you want to, makes you want to go into outer space. It's so cool. So, hey, Ron, thanks a lot.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I appreciate the opportunity, and we'll see you in January.
Sounds good. Appreciate it. So next up, we have Scott Olson. Every month on the Next Connect, we thought it would be a good idea to look at national marketing research that's coming out, because we have a lot of great assets, a lot of great research coming out across the organization that frankly directly impacts our programs and impacts the way we work with young people. And Scott, it's great to have you with us this morning.
Great. Let's face it, Michael, adventure means different things to different people.
Right.
I mean, we consider sports even a competitor to scouting because it's a source of adventure. I mean, there's a travel, there's camaraderie, there's excitement in team sports. But a Harvard University study that I found cited that 34% of middle school, high school kids didn't participate in sports because they were more interested in spending time on the phone, computers, TV, video games, things like that.
That's not a huge surprise, is it?
No,
right.
so let's face it, that's the real competition for after-school activities, including scouting. So it's our job as parents and leaders to create this adventure, to keep and hold the attention of youth. So I looked into more statistics for youth sports and learned that participation is actually down in youth sports about 4% since 2009.
That's funny because you drive past the soccer field on a Saturday morning and it looks like there's 1 million people out there, but it's actually dropping.
It's actually dropping, reflecting actually fewer participants and fewer participants per sport. So this Sports and Fitness Industry Association cited lack of casual or entry-level play for public schools and an emphasis on just the most elite and scholarship-earning athletes. So it's just a small sliver that's growing. The vast majority of sports is really declining.
That's interesting. I was in a meeting yesterday with Mike Serbaugh, who was talking about this same topic and how at some point there are kids who fall off the sports pyramid, right? They get involved at a young age, but at some point they don't make the football team, or for whatever reason they don't get involved or don't stay involved. Is that part of the trend?
Yeah, so that's why the scouting is so valuable, because it reaches just all kids, all boys. So it means that every after-school activity, though, church groups, sports, drama, music, STEM programs, all compete for the attention of kids. And they all try to create their own form of adventure.
Right, their unique experience, right?
So I found Forrester Research did a survey of parents of boys aged 7 to 12, our exact target market. They were asked where their boys currently spend their time. Sports, as expected, was most popular, followed by church youth groups, and then scouting. So full details of this research is available on the blog scoutingwire.org. It's under my name, Ask the Expert.
Got it. So that sounds very similar to what we heard through the Tough study, right? I mean, we heard that it wasn't just kids involved in it's in one thing. We heard the successful kids are actually involved in multiple things.
Yes. Yes. So when boys are choosing both youth sports and scouting, the Tufts University showed that they develop positive character traits like kindness, obedience, trustworthiness. But specifically when they talked about sports and scouting, they embraced pro-social values like doing the right thing, helping others, exactly our core competencies. And they developed those skills greater than those who just participated in sports. Scouting plus sports equals a greater benefit.
Well, that's interesting because usually when I would run a joint scouting night for my Cub Scout pack, for instance, the number one question I got was, hey, well, Johnny plays sports on Monday night. When is your meeting? Because he's going to pick one or the other, right? And if there's a conflict, this mom was going to help pick one activity or the other. But you're saying it's actually better if he can get involved in both. It actually helps him grow and succeed.
Yes, it does. Then one other interesting fact before we end this webinar, and that is age. So there was a question saying how eager are parents likely to enroll their very, very young kids? And of course our target age is 6 or 7, but fully 17% of parents are willing to enroll their kids in programs of some type at age 4 or less.
4 or less.
And then by age, our target market, 5 to 7, it becomes 69% of these firstborn children are willing to participate in some kind of activity after school. So there is wide acceptance of our programs and enrolling kids at a very young age. Full details of that study are also available on the scoutingwire.org.
Well, that's interesting. You know, we've seen that in research for years, that parents are getting their kids involved in things earlier and earlier. In fact, research about scouting has said, boy, you know, the prime opportunity really is those early years of Cub Scouting to get them involved in the program, and that's actually when we're most successful in recruiting. Scott, thank you very much. We appreciate your time this morning.
Thank you. You're welcome.
All right. That's it for the Data Dump for this morning. Hey, so we've dedicated ourselves to making sure that this is not an hour of us talking to you, but keep it short, keep it to the point, and I think we've done that this morning. Special thanks to Ron Timmons for joining us here this morning. Ron, thank you very much.
Thank you.
The next webinar, the next Connect webinar will be all the way in next year on January the 19th, and the topic is strengthening youth through scouting, really talking about developing and cultivating and strengthening those relationships with our national chartered organizations. And we'll have Lee Shaw and a cast of thousands here with us on that call as well. So again, it'll be 10 o'clock on January the 19th. Thanks again, everybody. We are going to get this recording over to our AV folks, get it cleaned up and get it posted up on the Scouting Wire within the next 24 hours or so. So if you want to listen to this again, you can do it or share it with people. Again, thanks a lot. Have a Merry Christmas. Have Happy Holidays. Happy New Year. We'll see you next year.